Hello and welcome back. We are going to pick up from where we stopped. I already created another file. I call this function underscore 3. We are going to continue from here, and I want to grab this first part of the program that is in the previous one and paste here so we get enough room. I'll close this. Alright, let's look at what we have here. We've talked about the input parameters, which was the previous class we looked at. We've talked about the input parameter where we get some input and then we pass it into the code and then we run it out of the code. Imagine a situation where we want some output that would be sent back to the program. How do we do that? I have added this in the background, return value, which is another word we can use to explain what this is about. Okay, let's give an instance. We want to get the first name of someone, we want to get the last name, and we want to concatenate it in a function. Let's say you are making an app where someone would have to give the first name and the last name, and we concatenate it. Let's call the function full name that will do the concatenation for us. And then we want to print some statements which could be long. Let's say welcome, we give the full name, and then when the person logs out, we put goodbye, we give the full name as well. How do we tackle this? We could attempt what we've done before. We create a function, let's call it let full name we create a function like this. I believe as you continue to do this, you should be used to it by now. Let full name, we are passing in first name as the first parameter, and we're also passing in the last name as the second parameter. So we want to print out full name, which is the first name and the last name. Let's concatenate here. We could say console.log, we concatenate name, welcome, we call this first name, and then we concatenate it with the last name with some space in between. We call this the last name. We could do something like this for welcome, and then for another one, we create another function where we call we create this one, we call this first name, we call this welcome, and we create another one. We copy this, we create another one, we call this goodbye, such that when we log out, we get this information as this and as that. We could do something like this, but you can see from what we talked about, our code should be dry. We are repeating whatever we're doing here. This could work when we run a function. The person logs in, we print out let's welcome, we pass in the person's first name as Samuel, and then we pass in the last name as Jonah. I'll comment this out, but I'll still come back to that. If we run this, it's node function underscore 3.js. If we run it, we get what we want, and then when the person wants to log out, we just change the function to goodbye, and we get goodbye Samuel Jonah. But another way we can do this is this, which I was trying to do before. I'll just copy this out, the first part, I paste here, I uncomment it. Let's convert this to full name. What this guy would just do is to concatenate the name for us without printing anything on the screen. So the job of this is just to concatenate. What we do now is we create something here. Let's call this, we can call this name equal this. So we've created a string that we concatenate the first name and the last name. And then what we have to do now is to put some return statement, which is used to return whatever value we have used here. So we can only return one value in a function. We return name. What happens is this: when we want to print out whatever we are using here, we just use this value inside name. I'll make a simple example. Let's create something here. Let us, I'm just thinking, we pass some function which is full name. That is our function, and we are passing our first name, a string, and my other name. Okay, if I want to print this, there is no console.log here. I'm just using the return statement. Instead of using console.log to print it automatically, I'm using return statement. Now what I'm going to console.log outside here, or whatever app you're using, how you can run it is just whatever app you're using, how you can print out something on the screen is just to, in this case I'm using the console.log. I'll just pass in us, and what this will do is this: it just prints out the name. You can see that it just does that simply. It is because of this return statement. The return statement is used to return some value back to the user, or whatever the user has done inside. It is used to return back. It can be called as the function caller, which calls back whatever we use to the main function. Okay, now I was trying to give an example based on this. With this, we have the full name. You can then print out something on your own here. Welcome us. And then you can as well print when the person logs out, goodbye. You concatenate us. I believe you understand what I'm saying. The naming convention is up to you. At the time of writing the code, whatever comes to your mind, you use. But it is important you use something which even when you see it, you can remember. I can also give it another name, but I shouldn't use the name I have declared. I can say main name, which I will also change here. So you can see, if I run this, it prints the same thing which this one had. But in this case, we had how many lines of code? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. It has been reduced by 1, but you can understand what we're doing here. This is just a simple one. So the return statement is very useful whenever you are writing code. I'll give another example. I want to create another function. Let's area of a triangle now. Want to create a function for that function. Remember, you can also create function like this. I'm just trying to use both of them so you can get used to them. And then you remember the area of a function, the area of a triangle rather, is half base times height. Okay, so if we run this now, we're going to have that. That means we are going to be requiring two parameters. The first one is the base, and the next one is the height. These are the two parameters we are passing, and we can use that in our code, which means we create something which we are going to use as the return value. Let's call this area because it is inside the function. Let area be equal to, I'll copy this and I'll paste it in here. Call this base and height, which are the parameters we are passing, and then we return area. Okay, what we can do now is let triangle 1 be equal to, we pass in some values with the function area of triangle. What do we want to use as the base? We want to use 12 as the base, and the height, let's use 15. What we do now is we print out console.log the area of the rectangle is triangle. Triangle 1. What has happened is that whatever we return from here will be stored here, and then we use it to print out something. Can you see? The area of the rectangle is 90. So if you do the math, 12 times 15, whatever you get, you divide by 2. You're going to get 90. That is 12 by 15, 180 times 2 gives you, divide by 2 gives you 90. So that is how you find the area of the rectangle by using this. We can also create more. One thing is this: if you're using the return function, you should take note of this. If you're using the return function or the return value, it doesn't print like when you use the console.log, because console.log will give you the value. If I comment this out and I run, nothing will be printed there because the value is just stored here, waiting for you to use it. Console.log helps you print it, to print it out. So that is that on this. For this, the challenge for this is this: I want you to return print the name of your president and return it in a statement, whatever statement we want to use. In my own, I would just do it as a question. Do you love? Then I'll put in the name of the president. So you can do yours. All right, welcome back. This is what we want to do here. We call this let president. We give in his first name and then last name. It's a fat arrow function. Okay, now we want to store it somewhere. Let's call this president full name equal, we concatenate f name plus l name with some space in between. Okay, so this is how we do it, and then we return press full name. All right, now we have done this. We can now create this here. I'm a Nigerian equal president, which is the function. We pass the first name and we pass the second name. We could do this like this. Let me show you something. I'll put this in a bracket as well, and I'll console.log this from this point, and I'll ask the question here, which is now which should be this. Do you love, and I put my concatenation here. So what has happened is this. In this on its own, where I stored this, I used it already, but now there is no place I can console.log this here, so I take this out of here because it's already stored here, and I run this down here. If I save this and run, you can see that I need a question mark at the end, so I concatenate something else, just the question mark which is required. Alright, so what I did here, I'll explain again. I created this, and it is a string, and I concatenated the function to it. You can see there are a lot of things you can do with your return value. I concatenated my whatever I am returning here, and it ran. So this is what we've gotten.